Aw. You're a smart man.
Uh-huh. All right, here we go, guys. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. This is a really interesting show. Got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today, and of course, as always, some really talented photographers on the panel to dive into This Week in Photo. All right, guys, I want to do brief introductions, and we're gonna dive into the first story, which is personal projects, which I know you both are no stranger to. First up, Lindsay Adler, you haven't been on the show. I mean, we haven't talked in like I don't know. It's been like a year at least since you and I have talked. I feel like I see you in passing, but I never get to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I thought we were actually friends, and now it's so much time passed. I'm doubting your sincerity. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
I know
kidding.
we are friends, and I'm gonna mute my microphone here and go headphones. No, we are friends. It's just busy. We're all busy, busy, busy. It's crazy, you know. But it's all good. It's all good. So welcome to the show, or welcome back to the show. Anything crazy going on in your life, Lindsay?
I have, well, the answer is yes, always. I just got back from a trip to Peru, and that was lovely. And I have two big announcements about this week. I have two, so I think we're
Uh-oh.
saving that for later, so everyone has to listen all the way through.
Yeah. Yep.
And no, life is good. I am turning 30 next week.
Oh, you're a baby. Whatever. Shut up. The big 30. Wow. Look at that. I'm not going to reveal what I'm turning in November, but it's not 30. So that's
I would
good.
have guessed younger.
Oh, thank you. See, smart woman.
I'm
Look at
sorry.
that.
See?
Smart woman. All right, Lindsay, welcome to the show. Also sitting next to you in my hangout window is my friend, Mr. Giulio Shorio. We haven't talked in forever either, man.
I
What's going
know
on
it's
with
it's
you?
it's been man, it's been a minute. I was like, I think the other day I was like, man, I gotta hit up Frederick. So,
I know.
uh,
Last time we talked, I think your beard was not as gray as it is right now, right?
yeah. I'm like I was like, well, I'm at the priming stage for the winter beard, but then I decided I'm probably gonna shave it off. So this is as big as it's gonna get for the fall.
Oh, you're not going mountain man, huh?
Nah, it's too much, man. And the thing is with beards, no matter how careful I am, whatever I eat, it always ends up in the beard.
It's
You
the
know,
flavor saver.
I don't know what the difference is between a beard and not a beard. Maybe it's like just a subtle weight difference, and my mouth can't. I don't know, but it always ends up in the beard. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, science says everything has gravity, so maybe your beard has a little bit of gravity. It's pulling the food in.
it could. I just am concerned that I may get attacked by birds at some point. You know.
Okay. We'll get. Yeah. See, the listeners can already tell it's going to be a really good conversation.
I was going to
Let's.
say, I have that fear daily.
There you go.
What for? What? Getting food in your beard? What?
No, birds attacking me.
Oh, oh, with your hair. Nice.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to go too far off. I just have to tell you, one time I grew up on a farm, and I was helping my family removing hay in the barn, and the bats came at me, and I thought for sure they would just be stuck there for my whole life. I was young and terrified. So it's kind of like the birds, but the bats. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, I feel you with your beard fear. Yeah.
If you were a goth, that would have been a perfect moment.
Look at
It
that.
would have been.
Look at that. You see, we all have, I have tons of little stories like that. We'll save those for later. Let's dive into story number one, guys. So it's the importance of personal projects. And I know both of you have, from speaking to you individually, you've done personal projects, a lot. Julio, I've looked at some of your personal projects. You've done some that are on the risque side and some that are on the more pedestrian side, but you kind of thrive on this stuff. Just set the stage for us about personal projects, and then I'll read this blurb in the show notes.
Well, so for me, I do a personal project at least once a quarter, or I call them tests. Basically, I'm either testing myself and to see if I want to try a new visual style, or perhaps sometimes it's gear related, but it's mainly, I'm curious about a new visual style, and I got to discover, is it something I really want to shoot for client work, or is it something that I just kind of want to experiment with?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what part of, I mean, there's so much you can get from tests. When I test with talent, I'm also testing with makeup and wardrobe and all that together to see how we work well as a team, so that when assignments do come along, I'm able to use that team that works best, and then have a really smooth shoot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this story comes to, or this sort of topic comes to us from Jose Rosado Photography, and we'll link to his blog post and his article that he wrote on his blog on This Week in Photo. But Lindsay, I want to talk to you as well, and Julia, we're back to you. I'm going to dive into some of the other things that some of the specifics of the projects you work on. Lindsay, you thrive on personal projects as well, right? So tell us a little bit about your kind of ethos around personal projects.
Definitely. So I try to shoot at least, I would say at least 4 times a month, something personal. I'm not getting paid for it, and the only boss in the room is me.
Yeah.
And that is rewarding in and of itself, because a lot of us got into photography to express ourselves and to be the one in control of the photo, and sometimes we lose that.
Yeah.
So I shoot a lot of personal projects that, like right now I have a personal project where the theme is, if you look at my portfolio, this would make sense, the theme is red. And so I go ahead and I make lists of every single thing I can possibly imagine that could be red, or that red makes me feel or think of, or whatever. And so I try to shoot 1 or 2 of those a month. And then I'm a fashion photographer. I probably shoot once a month, once every other month I shoot a nude, because then it's totally different. It's not worrying about the hair and the makeup and the wardrobe. It's just the human form. And so it challenges me to think of lighting and posing and mood, and then I get more creative in Photoshop. So I kind of just try to do something where either I'm the boss or it's super far away from what I normally do for paid work.
So it pushes you out of the box a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So with that, so looking at, and when I think about personal projects, I think, like you said, Lindsay, you're working. You don't have the oversight committee there, right? Of the client or the customer or whatever. You're free to express yourself and do whatever you want to do. Lindsay, if you, like, folks that are listening to this, they're thinking, you know what, I need to figure out what a personal project to do is, and that's always the thing, right? So it's always like, okay, this all sounds great. I want to do a personal project, okay, but now I have analysis paralysis. What do I do? Do I go, is my personal project photojournalism of homelessness in my city, or is it of, great buildings in my city, historic buildings? How do you figure out what you're going to do, Lindsay?
Yeah, so I have several different approaches, and of course everybody's different, right? Everybody gets inspiration, and then they're inspired to create for different reasons. But my personal projects actually began when I realized that I didn't like so much what I was shooting for my paid work. It was unfulfilling, and then I looked at it and I'm like, this is not my best work. So what I actually started for personal projects was not purely emotional fulfillment, but it was actually, let me give myself assignments that is to love to be heard. It could be of my life, what would push me creatively, what would fulfill me. And so that was actually my first form of personal project, which helped me build my portfolio, which helped me to have the job I have today, where I'm paid to shoot stuff that sometimes feels like personal work. So that's like kind of a twist on it. It's not necessarily personal because it has the commercial twist on it, but it's really rewarding in what you get out of it in the end.
Yeah. And I'm gonna transition at the end of this segment. I'm gonna transition into education, which kind of speaks to the secret thing that we're gonna talk about a little bit later, Lindsay. Julio, your personal projects, I've seen some of the stuff that you work on, like I teased, is you do some risque stuff on one hand, and on the other hand, it's kind of commercial fashion and even some photojournalistic street photography type stuff. How do you pick what you're gonna do? Like, well, how do you say, like, okay, today I'm gonna do this particular project, and here's why?
Sure. Well, I keep a vision file in Evernote, and then an actual physical vision file from tears when I do.
Oh, you're organized. Oh, you're that guy.
So I go back about every 3 months, and I start looking at the images, and I start writing on the images. What is it about these images that I like? And I try to narrow it down to about maybe 20 or so. Then I see where my portfolio plugs in to this body of work based on other people's images. And then I'm like, okay, well, is this something I want to shoot, or is it just that I like this particular visual sensibility? And if it's something I want to shoot, then I start thinking about what it would take to produce a shoot to make similar images that are inspired based on what I have in my vision file, and then I go about shooting it like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. See, that's a good way to look at it. Keeping a list of things, and I remember, geez, like years ago, I started this and then never kept up with it. Where back when I was still keeping subscriptions to some magazines,
Mm-hmm.
I would go through the magazines like, oh man, this is a great shot. I'd rip that out and stick that in this big book, and like, oh man, look at this shot. And then now with the advent of services like Pinterest, and I'm like, okay, if I have an idea for a shot, I'll go to Pinterest and build a board and just start putting stuff on that board of what I want. And I think that idea might have come from you, Lindsay. I'm not sure, but somebody, I think it might have been you, but somebody clued me into using Pinterest as kind of a way to build visions like that. So I want to, like, speaking of the tear sheet kind of thing, Lindsay, do you do that as well, especially from a fashion photographer perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I do is I build mood boards. So what I'll do is
Mm-hmm.
I'll look across the images that I've collected, and I'll put together a story. I pick one thing that inspired me. Maybe I start with the hair and I build the story around the hair, or I start with a piece of wardrobe and I build around that. But one of the things I kind of wanted to bounce back on related to that is I know when I was first looking for inspiration, I actually felt more discouraged than encouraged or inspired, because I would look at so many other photographers' work that was incredible and just know that I didn't match up. And you know what, I might be inspired by, but I'm not going to be as good as, and it's discouraging. And so what referring back to what he was recommending as well, is if you can look at these images and really analyze what is it that I'm drawn to. You're not trying to copy the whole photo or be that photographer. You're not going to be. You are you. That's what makes you an artist. So is it the hair that inspired you? Is it the color palette? Is it an emotion that you can see in the subject's face? And so when I create these collections of images and mood boards, I'm always analyzing not just I like this photo, but what is it I like about that photo? And exactly like he said, okay, now when I take that element, how can I fit it into my style or my personal project that I have? So yeah, I have more. See, I'm super disorganized. I'm working on it, but I have tens of thousands of images, and that's why usually the only ones that I can actually ever find are the ones on Pinterest, because there's actually some semblance of organization there.
See, that's where I got it from. Yeah, you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to put this out to both of you guys. So here's like a personal struggle, right? So I've been shooting for a while now. I've been calling myself a photographer for a while now, and over time you start seeing patterns in the chaos. Especially online, you see photos flow through from 500px and on Instagram and on Facebook and Twitter. So you start seeing all these images, and over time, over the years, you start seeing patterns like, okay, there's a long exposure of some poles sticking out from a dock, and there's a mountain range with a bird in there, and here's a baby photograph that's wrapped up in a blanket. So you start seeing stuff over and over and over again. And me personally, as a photographer, that discourages me, because I'm like, yeah, that's a really good, technically competent, creative shot, but I've seen it a million times. No, I don't want to do that. What's in it for me? It's like me as a non-landscape photographer. The way that I look at landscapes are, like, landscapes are awesome, and I've seen some beautiful shots from Karen Hutton and Trey Ratcliffe and all those guys. But I look at landscapes, and I'm like, man, I can never capture a shot of Yosemite that's going to knock those guys out of the water. So why even show up to the party if I can't do something different and innovative? Julia, what do you think? How do you get out of that rut of, wow, look at all this great photography and there's patterns in there, and I can't do anything better, so I'm just not going to shoot at all?
Yeah, it's something about the human brain. It's easy to fall into, especially for our creative people, to be compare ourselves to other artists and get discouraged and all that. And that's really just like a bad time, man. It's a bad habit you don't want to get into. And I catch myself in there too, because I hang out on Behance a lot, and there's like all these artists from like Russia and stuff, and they're so badass. I'm like, my God, I'm like, I can't even do this. But what I think, like, what I do when I'm looking at this is how can I speak to this visual language in my own in my own words, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make my version of it, not somebody else's. And sometimes, though, if you're really different, if you really try something different, it's always good to experiment. But if you're looking to get likes on Facebook when you experiment, often that's not the way. People want to see, like you said, very cliche kind of thing, baby wrapped in blanket, and you know what I mean. And certainly it won't be like anyone else's; it'll be like yours. But some photographers do really well with I don't want to say gimmicks, but the first person the first person to rock sepia was a hero.
Right. Well, I look at it, I'm thinking. I think of the internet as everything's a double-edged sword, sometimes a triple-edged sword, right? So, the internet's great because now we have these gigantic audiences that we can expose our work to, and we can do all this cool stuff now, and there's Facebook and Instagram, and there's all this crazy stuff that we can do now that we couldn't do, say, 20 years ago, or let's say 100 years ago. But when you look back at the great artists, like the Da Vinci's and those guys and Michelangelo, these guys are creating these incredible works of art. They weren't expecting to get a whole millions of likes on their work, right, Lindsay? I mean, and did that fuel them? I mean, this is what I wrestle with. I'm looking at Michelangelo's work, amazing stuff. You'd probably never see anything like that again. But he did not have the internet. He did not have peer review processes. He did not have online tutorials. He didn't have trade shows. He didn't have any of this stuff. But yet he still did that stuff that survives to today. What's different? It seems like today things would be a little bit easier because we have all those things to create that caliber of work, yet we're still seeing patterns in the chaos. What's the deal?
I think that part of the problem is that there's a proliferation of photos. I read something somewhere that said the average person sees 5,000 marketing-oriented images a day. This is not just images, okay? So then let's imagine us photographers that go through and we seek out images. And so in the past, things didn't necessarily have that opportunity to become as cliche or expected because there wasn't that much produced. So I just see it as it is certainly bound to happen, and not only are people inspired by others, and some people don't know, aren't wired to come up with their own ideas, but we're also all humans with we a lot of times are wired in the same way, and we will be attracted to certain things. And this is kind of a side note on this, but for patents, for example, if you look at patents, when a new technology, sometimes it'll be this profound brand new technology, and when you look back at it, 1,000 people were trying collective conscience. So that's kind of how I'm feeling, is that a lot of times we're all exposed to similar things. We're all human. We live in a lot of similar. We're exposed to similar mass culture, and so it's going to happen. The ability to stand out, the whole creating something different.
Yes.
I think that to some extent it's knowing that everything's been done. So it's a matter of don't necessarily try to do something new. Try to do something that's you. Don't do new, do you. Yeah. And so the more that it speaks to you, the more that it is unique, because you are a one-of-a-kind artist. And so if you can really figure out who you are as an artist, that's how you create something unique.
How do you do that along the way without getting sued for plagiarism? What's his name? Robin Thicke and Pharrell got sued for just recently $7.5 million because they allegedly used a piece of a Marvin Gaye song, which they're alleging they
heard
did.
it.
Right, yeah. So it was a very popular song. So what about that? I mean, that's digital media, and they said, quote, they drew inspiration from that, but now they're on the hook for $7.5 million, which they are, they're going to drag it back into court, but still, $7.5 million for creative inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's challenging, and I've had instances. So I've got two perfect instances. There was a little while back, it was a couple years ago, it popped up online where, I mean, it was as close to a photo I had taken as possible that someone else had shot. They went ahead and they basically tried to reproduce my photo as close as possible. And so I asked the question, is this inspiration, or is this imitation, or just flat out copying? And so while maybe, maybe as an artist I could be indignant, this person ripped me off. Okay, fast forward. Maybe about a month ago, I did a shoot, and I was looking at the images, and I'm like, wow, you know what? I really think I've seen this before. Like, I shot this. Like, I created this shoot. And I'm thinking about it, and I started doing research, and I started going through Pinterest, and it wasn't in my boards, and eventually I found a photo. And it looks so, so stinking similar. But I didn't realize it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't in my consciousness. It wasn't in front of me. It wasn't on a mood board, but it was in the back of my head. So I guess my point is it's not that easy. It's not that easy, especially when you are consuming a lot of visuals all the time, and you're inspired by things, and it just gets tucked away. So I think there's a difference between you see an image, you see an artist, and you're trying to do the exact same thing, or when you're being inspired, often make a difference in the end result as well.
Yeah. It's a hard problem, especially. I mean, it's a problem unique to creatives, right? Because, like you said, your subconscious is always cranking, even when you're sleeping, and you hear or see something. You're driving down the road and you just glance up at a billboard, and now that's in your subconscious, and you go back and you have this epiphany of, I had the greatest idea for a shot, and you go do it, and it's the shot that was on that billboard or something very similar. Julia, what about you? I mean, do you worry about that? Or in other words, where do you pull the inspiration from so that it's original?
Well, I think I just find stuff that inspires me in one form or another. Sometimes it's not even visual. Sometimes it's music. Sometimes it's a book. Cool. And I'll write down my own concepts. I'll pull from visuals, and just try to make it my own, so that I'm inspired. So that when I shoot this, when I'm creating something for myself, I'm like, this I'm doing for me, and I want to feel satisfied 100%. And even if the test isn't a success, in the way that I wanted it to be, still feel satisfied that I made that effort. But I have people copy me all the time. I mean, and I used to really get concerned about it. I used to put my watermark up. I don't worry about it anymore, and I don't worry about it anymore. And the life of a photo, man. What is it like 3-4 days?
Yeah.
If you look at your analytics on like Instagram, man, I don't, unless it's like a cat or a hot chick, it's dropped
or a hot
off.
Chick holding a cat, right?
Which is also that's an actual Instagram feed, by the way. It drops off.
Hot dudes with dogs.
There you go.
Of course, just to keep it fair and balanced, right?
I'm trying to be fair here. Okay.
I've had people copy my like just right click and save my photos and make their own website. And I had clients come to me and they're like, "This guy's marketing your work to us."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah. I mean, you're not the first photographer I heard say that. Who was it? Trey Ratcliffe says that as well. Life is too short to chase after the bottom feeders when you could be using that time to actually create more art. And I think Trey's. I'm paraphrasing what he was saying, but he was saying something akin to. He doesn't want to pay attention to those guys because they generate too much negative energy that takes away from what he wants to be doing in life, and they're a rounding error in the grand scheme of things anyway. So, interesting.
I had one major label steal my work once in 2008. That went on between my attorney and their attorney for a few years, and at the end of the day, I got like $800 after all the expenses were done. And after that,
stress and all that.
Yeah. And after that, I'm like, man, unless it's like a billboard by like a major car company or something stealing my work, I'm just not going to worry about it.
Yeah. Oof, that's scary. Yeah, it makes you not want to litigate, but then it also, it's scary that people can steal your stuff and get away with it for $800, right?
Yeah, and then what if they steal it and they're based in China or something? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, it's like, I guess it's a whole different conversation, but do you even bother copywriting your work anymore?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's a whole nother conversation. But I want to branch this conversation into education. And earlier today, I did an interview with Valerie and Griffin Stewart. These are the guys behind the 5-day deal. And we sat down, and this Valerie, Valerie's in on the 5-day deal. She's kind of the one of the main forces behind it. But Lindsay, I know you have products in there. I have products in there, and when I first was approached by them to participate in the 5-day deal, I looked at it, and this was last year when I participated. I looked at it, and I looked at it with one eye closed because I was thinking, you know, is this real? Is this a scam to build email lists? Is it a Kickstarter type thing that needs to get funding before they actually ship things? So when I participated, I found obviously that it wasn't that. It's actually a really legit deal that a bunch of my peers and people that I know, love, and respect are participating in. But I thought there was merit, especially this being the week that they're launching it, I thought there was merit in bringing them on the show in an interview to kind of pull the covers back and talk about the mechanics of it. Because this is two people that are moving mountains to the tune of millions of dollars and funding charities and all this stuff from their living room. It's just ridiculous. So I'm gonna run this interview right now with those guys, and then after it I want to talk about just education in photography. And Lindsay, I want to dive into how you're participating in the 5-day deal as well. So let's give this a listen right now. All right. And then we'll run the Linda ad. All right, we're back to the show now. So Lindsay Adler, you're in on this 5-day deal with Griffin and Valerie over there. Great people, obviously, as the listeners can probably tell. Very genuine, like just down to earth people. You know, not doesn't seem like there's a disingenuous bone in their body. In the interview, I don't think you've heard the interview yet, but in the interview, like I said before, the tease, I said two of the main reasons why I wanted to participate in the 5-day deal was because people like you are in there, and you know, there's David Duchemin, there's, you know, it goes on and on, you know, Serge Ramilli, etc. All these people are in there, and I'm like, okay, if they're in there, not so much as peer pressure, but it's validation. It's like, I trust you guys, and if you guys are in there, then it's okay for me to be in there. Plus the charity aspect of it that we talked about in that interview. What drew you to be to include products in the 5-day deal?
Well, I've got two things, but the one that I think was pretty awesome was the original thing that caught my attention was the charity aspect, and I was actually in the very first 5-day deal. So this one is the third one or fourth one. I was in the very, very first one.
Oh, okay.
And they mentioned the charity part of it, and what ended up being awesome is my little sister always teases me because my little sister is in the Peace Corps, and she is stationed in Madagascar, and she helps spread awareness about many things, you know, health and sanitation, but also prevention and treating malaria and all of these things. And so she always tells me how she's saving the world, and I take pictures of pretty people. And so anyway, last year, one of the charities that the 5-day deal raised money for was an organization called Mercy Ships. And what Mercy Ships does is they go on the coast of Africa, and they'll set up, and so they're able to provide surgical facilities and procedures that people wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And a lot of times it's things that are life-threatening but can be cured easily. So we raised tons of money for Mercy Ships, and it was really cool because my sister over in Madagascar actually ended up working with Mercy Ships, and she went out and collaborated with them and helped bring people that needed these treatments to Mercy Ship, and she was able to analyze that. So I thought it was a cool full circle that I was able to contribute to that, and then it was kind of finished off and actually carried out by my little sister. So I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, that is really cool. And the 5-day deal, in speaking with them, and to reiterate what they said in the interview, for $127, I think it was $127, you're getting $3,000 worth of training, which is, those two numbers don't really jibe, which is why, you know, a lot of people look at it with one eye closed. So $3,000, and we'll link to the deal from this blog post. But yeah, $3,000 for $127, and then they're trying to raise, I think Griffin said, They're trying to raise, geez, I forget what the number was. I want to say $300,000 for charity or some ridiculous number like that that they're going to be giving to charity. And I asked him in the interview, I'm like, okay, where did that $300,000 to charity number come from? Why not 100,000 and put the 200,000 in the bank, or use, buy you and Valerie some Teslas, and he basically said they're just trying to up it. That's where their altruism comes in. They're trying to up it from last year,
Yep.
and beat the goal that they had last year, and help the world, which I think is really cool. But I don't want to center this all in the 5-day deal. I want to talk specifically about education, and the tie-in to the 5-day deal is it's like a year's worth of training that you get for $127, and they only do it for those 5 days once a year. So, and anybody can get in there, So the tie-in, Julio, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Photographers, for me, I'm a big fan of education. I'm the vice chairman of the board at Brooks Institute in Santa Barbara. I love education, and I love the fact that people like to learn about photography and this art form and the business of it and all that. Things like the 5-day deal and online training resources and all that, and your site and all the things that people can do online. In your opinion, what do you think is the best way for folks to learn photography? Say someone that's just like, you know what, people have been telling me my shots are pretty good that I do on my iPhone, and I'm thinking of upping my game and to become more like Julio or Lindsay. What should I do? What advice would you give to them to become better?
Go out and shoot more, and shoot
Mileage, right?
Well, but specifically create with intent. It's so easy, right, for people to go out and say get into street photography, and they're just randomly shooting whatever, and that's a trap that people can get involved in deep. And what's happening is they're just kind of learning how to use the mechanics of their camera, and they're not really growing as a creative being. So if you're out and you're creating with intent, I'm going to go out today and I'm going to shoot 5 really cool street portraits of dogs, and I looked at my vision file, and I like the way this black and white looks, and I got that preset on my camera, and I'm going to shoot those only with JPEG. So I'm going to get a writing camera and with one lens or whatever. You're giving yourself constraints. You're giving yourself the intent to go out and create something, and you're going to go out and create it. I think when you want to learn something more in depth, something really specific, then there's something like the 5-day deal or lynda.com. There's all the stuff you get on TWiP. That's where I think where that stuff really comes in handy when. Especially if it's like wintertime and you're not able to go out and shoot because it's so cold, that's a great time to dive into an educational book, a seminar, a video. That kind of stuff.
It's just again, it's overwhelmed, much like we were talking about in the beginning segment there. Just picking things to focus on is overwhelming. I got tons of books back here. I think I've read maybe a third of them. Tons of photography books. There's online resources. I have a lynda.com subscription. Lindsay, you have training on your site. Nicole has training on her site. There's Kelby training. There's Creative Live. There's all this. There's workshops. There's all this stuff coming at people. Lindsay, how do people say, okay, this is how I'm going to learn to be a better photographer without getting distracted or suffering from the analysis paralysis?
Okay, so I think it's twofold. One of the things I recommend is finding someone that both inspires you, so finding the photographers that inspire you and trying to see what you can learn from them, and also finding people who you understand their teaching style, because part of the reason there is so much education out there is because there's different styles and everyone learns in a different way. Maybe you really, really like to grasp more of the way it was approached in college and high school, and that's how you used to learn. Or maybe you like things that are completely off the wall, wacky, people shouting, and it's energy, and it touches you emotionally. But I think that it's important to do this online digitally and also in person, because when you find there's nothing like I remember in college. Okay, I did take photography in college as part of what I studied, and I took a whole class on studio lighting, and honestly, at the end of the class, I knew minimal. It was not that great. And then I went and I saw this fashion photographer work in New York, and I remember for the first time seeing him change the angle of his beauty dish and add a flag. And I just was mind blown. And it took him 10 seconds to do it, but I never thought to add a flag the way he did, which is, it's basically blocking off light for anyone who doesn't know. And then just the tilt of the beauty dish, and my brain just exploded. So it all has to work together. It really has to be a combination of everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. In educational or marketing terms, they would say it's the modes of learning, right? So some
Sure.
people learn better sitting in front of the computer. Some people need to be in a classroom and be able to raise their hand and ask a question, and that hands-on. Some people learn better isolated with a book and a highlighter and going through it. But you hit it right on the head, Lindsay. I think those offline things are a toe in the water. To really get there, you need to be face to face, and you need to actually be doing it with somebody that's better than you. It's kind of like reading a book on karate and understanding the fundamentals of karate, and then getting in a fight, and trying to use that karate.
Right, or the learning a language. You can take, a Rosetta Stone or whatever it is, and you practice it, but until you really have the conversations with the people who are fluent, it's not the same. It's not ingrained in you the same way.
Yeah, yeah. Julio, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think the advice I would give to an emerging pro would be a little different. So emerging pros need to all be apprenticing with a working professional, and take that apprenticeship as your life depends on it, because you're going to learn so much through being an assistant, and you have to take it seriously. I've had many apprentices. It was always an honor to teach them, and some worked out well and some didn't work out as well as others. But when I assisted, I was not a very good assistant. Let me tell you, I hate lifting heavy stuff. If it's like you're gonna go lift that body bag full of C-stands, I'm like, I think I need to take a break. But I always had a really good attitude about it. When I got my first studio, which I was renting from a master photographer, I was like, I really want to rent here. I'll clean your toilets. I'll mop your floor, whatever I got to do. And I ended up doing that, and I ended up paying rent. But it's because I had a hunger to go out and figure this out that I needed, and I wanted to learn from a working pro and see how they dealt with clients, contracts, all that stuff, and surround myself with it as much as I could. So apprenticing with a working professional is important, but if you're serious about it, don't do it if you're not 100% serious about it. Don't go waste a working professional's time because you had an idea. Hey, that sounds like a good idea, and it's not like a gym membership where you can quit. If you get in with a working pro, so someone starts working with Lindsay, and then it takes time to kind of get up to speed, and then you split because the going gets tough. Now you're kind of putting her out. But if you're a working pro, or if you're an emerging pro and you really, really want to do it, work with somebody and make that job your number one priority, and you will learn so much.
Love it, love it. One thing that's missing, I think, from a lot of education, and I think terrestrial, like brick and mortar education, like at Brooks and other schools, and online, is the business side of photography, the marketing, the social media, the taxes, just all that ugly monster, Zoidberg stuff that nobody wants to mess with. That's what's missing. So story number 3, after the break, we're going to talk about a new service that's helping, hopefully, to take some of the pain out of that nasty business side of things with online contracts and billing. So let's listen to this break first. All right, guys, we are back. Story number 3 is about a company called Agree, and somehow they got the domain name agree.com. So basically what Agree does is they're aiming to make contracts easy and simple by putting everything online. They're targeting photographers, videographers, designers, and other creative professionals. So online, you build the contract, your customer or subject digitally signs it, and then the payment and all that nasty stuff and the bugging stuff on the back end, they handle that as well. And it's a subscription service. So I'm looking at their prices here in the notes. So they have a limited beta, but when they launch, it's going to be free with a maximum of 3 active contracts at any time. Otherwise, you can opt to upgrade to unlimited with no restrictions for $20 a month or $240 a year. and then they have some early registration specials. So Lindsay, I know you do this a lot, right, with your clients, or maybe you don't. I mean, because you're kind of, I put you in this on this pedestal of the high-end New
Gosh.
York fashion photographer. You walk in with your sunglasses on, somebody hands
Oh
you a
yeah.
Hasselblad, you take 2 shots, you walk out, go get your coffee, right? So,
Yeah, I wish that would be awesome.
so but seriously, like for someone like you that's dealing with clients and whether they're like one-off clients or corporate clients, how do you handle the billing right now? And with a service like Agree fit into something like what you're doing?
It's really interesting because this is going to tie into a piece of advice that's going to sound really funny, but in my experience, so I was the one man or the one woman show forever when I moved to New York, right? It was all of that, the taxes and the invoicing and the marketing and the cold calls and I was the cleaner and the like I was everything. And then I realized it really took away from my time doing what my strength is. My strength is my interactions with my customers, and then of course creating concept development and figuring out what clients to pitch to and all of that stuff. So every time I would make a little bit more money, I would give it away to someone else who could help me not do the crappy stuff.
Love it. Yeah.
So what I mean by that is I currently have 2 full-time employees, and one of my full-time employees handles my bookkeeping and my invoicing and my contracts and all of that stuff, and that's her whole job. So just, I mean, for somebody who's like, yeah, I don't have X thousands of dollars to have an employee who handles that, I mean, not at that point. I think it makes a ton of sense to have services like that. And there are other programs that I've used along the way. I've used FreshBooks for my invoicing and whatnot,
Yeah.
and then I had BlinkBid for figuring out what to quote commercial clients and building up those contracts. So in other words, what I did is I would use online services until I made enough money to like not even have to do that. Like someone else can do even those online
Hire
services.
a human. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So
Use digital minions until you can hire real minions, right?
exactly. Yes. And that's actually what my photo assistants, they call themselves the Minions, and they said this year for Halloween they wanted to dress up as Minions with me.
Perfect. Perfect. I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned FreshBooks. They're a sponsor of TWiP, and I was using FreshBooks before they became a sponsor of the show, and it's specifically for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. Before I started using FreshBooks or similar services, it was, okay, I'm doing everything by hand, and oh, this client didn't pay, and I got to spend time emailing them and begging for money, and all this stuff, and then you use these services. In my case, it was FreshBooks. Use these services, and it sort of takes all that pain away. So that now I can grow the business. I don't think TWiP itself would be what it is today if it wasn't for that kind of offloading. I need to get to the point where you are, Lindsay, where I'm converting my digital minions into physical minions. So, Julia, what about you? Are you a minion-loving fool over there too?
I have actually I've actually done the opposite. I really wanted to get back to kind of doing a lot more. I'm kind of, I guess, in a way, a control freak, and so I went back to doing things through people helping me out online, with the exception of if it's a shoot and I need assistance and producing with the whole bit. I've kind of really been embracing minimalism in my life over the last couple of years. But I think stuff like this, like service, like Agree and FreshBooks. Personally, I use QuickBooks because that's what my CPA likes for them.
Yeah.
That's the best tip I can give you. When it comes to this kind of stuff, if you're working with other people like CPAs and they're like, use this and it'll make their job easier, which will save you money, then use whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think Agree could be pretty cool. It seems a little like it may be tailored more towards retail type photography or perhaps designers.
Yeah.
With my clients, usually there's, they send over some terms and conditions, and I'll send over some of mine, and then we kind of blend them together, and it just becomes a conversation through like Google Docs, and then at the very end I say, okay, great, we agree this, their attorneys look it over, it looks good, signed, not give me that money.
Yeah. And how does that happen? How does the money piece happen for you? Do you send them an invoice through FreshBook or through PayPal
No,
or how do you?
I use QuickBooks,
Okay.
and then it's a check. So it's 50% down, 50% when I deliver. If it's a new client, I don't give them terms. That means that when I deliver the images, they got to have a check ready, or there's no images being delivered.
Love it. Yeah.
Because I know a lot of photographers don't do that, but I've taken the stance that I don't think artists should be banks for major corporations.
Hmm.
So that's what I do. And you know what? And I've had to pass on some nice jobs, but I could do that, and so I did it. But once a company builds credit with me, like I know they're going to pay on time, they're cool to work with, and there's no switcheroo regardless of what's signed, then terms comes into play. And I got clients that'll pay me 60, 90 days out, and that's okay because there's
Because
credit
you
built
know
up.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like new clients, it's cash and carry, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to be. It's guilty until proven innocent when it comes to getting your money, right?
I think I have a little more street in my business than a lot of people. I used to know when I first started shooting. I made sure to know some scary people that would come up for for X amount of dollars, and there was other times where I went and sat in. This is back, I used to just do shoot for editorial, which uh, was really iffy. Sometimes the magazines would go out of business or whatever, so I would sit in the office and I'd be like, I'm not leaving until I get a check in hand. And they're like, someone was a receptionist, hey, come on out. There's a scary dude and he wants some money.
Do you bring out the Italian accent and show up in a suit?
Other things were presented.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not like that anymore, but I mean, it's different for everybody. You got to find out what works good for you, for your clients, and I think something like I think FreshBooks interface is awesome, and the grid looks really cool. You just got to find out what fits for you for sure.
Totally, yeah, yeah. You hit it right on the head, and you have to figure out, like Lindsay was saying, you got to figure out where your strengths are and play to your strengths, because
Exactly.
a lot of people have that issue. They don't know what their strengths are. They're like, okay, I have to do everything, even though I do these things a little bit better, but this is the grunt work, so I have to do the grunt work until I can get to the frosting over here. When imagine if you could just offload all that grunt work and only do the frosting all the time. That would be utopia, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to answer a listener question. All right, folks, it is time for some listener Q&A, and this week's question is from Diane Shopik. Diane says, I'd like to expand my portfolio of fashion photography, but I don't live in a major fashion center. How can I start to shoot more fashion on my own? Where can I go to find stylists and wardrobe people to collaborate with? And it just so happens on the show we have two people that can answer that. But Lindsay Adler, you live in a major metropolitan area. Julio, you do too, but Lindsay, you are in the major metropolitan area of New York City. What should Diane do to build up her minions of stylists and wardrobe people?
Well, I didn't start in New York City. I started in upstate New York, and it was as far culturally away from being a fashion center as you can get.
Hey, I used to live in Albany. That's far away, right?
Binghamton.
Oh, look at that, neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. You understand.
Yeah.
And so how I started to build my fashion portfolio and have it actually look like a real fashion portfolio for the wardrobe stylist part of that is I went to local colleges and universities that had a fashion design program. And I would find ways to speak to the people in charge of those programs and then collaborate with the students. That was a great way to do it. Another way to do it, or another benefit, or another avenue that I found was the local theater and opera companies, because they had a lot of interesting wardrobe that, sure, it was costumes, but costumes can photograph really interestingly as avant-garde pieces. And so, sure, I didn't have the credits that were necessarily high-end, but I had unique clothing in that way. Also, in the days of the internet, I have designers that send me pieces from all over the place, and I would connect with people from Etsy. Like when I was in upstate New York, it was a lot of people from Etsy and DeviantArt that I would find designers that did, like this one guy on DeviantArt did these like steampunk pieces. And so I reached out to him, and I would pay for shipping, and I would be able to have these avant-garde steampunk pieces to throw in with the dress that I bought from H&M, but it looked like high fashion when you added the steampunk piece. So I think it's obviously just being really resourceful and building connections that way. And now, for example, I have a designer that we've been friends for a while, and she's in Boston, does headpieces. And if I have a shoot concept, I'll just say, hey, I have this idea. Do you want to create something? And she'll make me something for my shoot, like put her creative stamp on it as well. And it has no correlation to the fact that I'm in New York. It's the relationship that I built from meeting her on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. See, relationship building. So Lindsay, Julie, I want to have you chime in too. But Lindsay, what about services like Model Mayhem or One Model Place, or are those good places to go? I hear mixed reviews on those services. Some people say they're like from Satan, and other people say they're just awesome. What do you think?
I have both opinions in one person because because the person I currently work with, well, several of the artists I currently work with for hair and makeup and for wardrobe, I originally met on checks. It really can't be that terrible, right? It was a good place to meet and cultivate these relationships. The downside, of course, is that there's a lot of crappy people that you'll work with and run into. Like, you got to weed out the bad ones to find the good ones.
Yeah.
But that's what testing is all about, as he was speaking about before. And some cities and some countries and some places, Model Mayhem is stronger and more active, or One Model Place. So it's kind of a toss-up. Like, I think it's worth trying, and then you'll decide how much you love or hate it soon, quickly.
Yeah. I think you hit it right on the head, and I think it's testing, and then once you shoot with a bunch of people or work with a bunch of people, then you kind of leave those services behind, because now you have the contacts with 2 or 3 makeup artists and 10 models that you use for different shoots, and you can just go directly to them. Julio, what about you, man? How do you, like, this listener question of where do they find stylists and wardrobe and all those people to collaborate with? How do you do it when you're building a shoot?
Well, when I first started shooting, and I was shooting food, and I actually wanted to grow into editorial portraits, I reached out to some of the talent agencies. This is 10 years ago. I lived in Phoenix, and I wanted to start doing model tests. So there's in every agency, big or small, every town, big or small, has people in those locations that want to be on camera talent, actors, models, whatever, and they need images for their comp card. Yeah. So I would get with the agency. They would send me their new talent, and so they're not going to be the best, but as long as they had a good attitude, they would come, and then often the agency would recommend makeup artists, wardrobe, whatever, and then we would test. And then I also did that when I first started to help generate income. So I would do 2 or 3 tests a day. And that helped get me my name out. It brought a little money in, and it helped build my book. So I only would use Model Mayhem or One Model Place. I totally forgot One Model Place was still around.
I don't know if they are.
That kind of, I was like, One Model Place. Oh yeah, back in MySpace. But I only use those services if I have to. They just feel like they're more oriented towards like the old dude that wants to shoot like a half-naked chick.
The GWC, guy with camera.
Yeah, like in a barn or something on some hay, like, you know what I mean? Those kinds.
Like it.
It's like if you can arch your back by X amount of degrees, Model Mayhem's for you.
Oh,
but I have no memory card in my camera, but let's go shoot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So model testing is a great way to do it. And as long as the talents have a good attitude, don't expect to get seasoned talent unless you are an established fashion photographer. You're going to get rookies, but they're going to come in. They're going to do, like, the first thing to do is hand on the hip, or they're going to have the same exact look on their face. For every emotion, smile.
Show me angry.
Sad. Show me angry.
Show me happy.
sad. You know, it's like, you know, like, are you sad? Are you on the toilet? What does that look? You know, but you just got to work with them. But it's if you're
It's
just
good
starting out,
exercise, though, right? That's good
it
exercise.
really is though. If they're just starting out and you're starting out, that could be cool. And then some of the people that I tested with went off to Hollywood, ended up working on some TV shows, and they're still on some TV shows. And so you never know.
You never know. You never know. All right, before we leave this and go into our picks of the week, for the folks that are living in New York City, I'm sure they're watching this. Lindsay, people are going to want to know where you get your hair and makeup done. Where do you go to get the Lindsay Adler look there?
Yeah, so I have two hair and makeup artists that I work with regularly.
Mm-hmm.
One's name is Johnny Gonzalez, and the
Mhm.
other is Grisel Rosario. And both of those people I worked with when I first moved to New York, but they were among dozens that I worked with, dozens and dozens that I tested out, and those are the two that have really kind of stood the test of time of growing with me, being talented people, and then also being reliable. So those are my two go-to people.
Love it. Perfect. All right, folks, if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, just head over to thisweekinphoto.com and click on our Submit a Question link and send us a question or leave us a voice message. All right, folks, we're going to jump into the Picks of the Week segment. And remember, you guys can pick anything to recommend to the TWiP listeners as long as it is somehow related to photography. Lindsay Adler, I'm going to let you go first. What is your pick of the week?
Okay, because I think I know yours, I'm modifying mine slightly.
You can pick the same thing. I don't care.
Well, okay, so my pick of the week is actually based on a trip that I just made. So the trip I made to Peru, my mom and I decided to be super ambitious and climb this ridiculous hike. It was 3.5 miles one way, straight up stairs with no flat. It was just stairs the whole way, and it was crazy, and it would drop off like thousands of feet to the side. Okay, what this has to do with gear is that I wanted to be able to have my camera steady, but I did not want to have it around my neck because I was at points I was crawling up, and I didn't want to be hitting the rocks and all that stuff. So my pick of the week would be it's two, but it's the same. My Spider holster with my Spider Pro hand strap, because when I hiked, I was able to have my camera on my hip, and it didn't get in the way. It didn't add any extra weight. It wasn't swinging around. I had it locked in place on my hip. Take a picture. Is it strong and it's durable, so it's feels great on the hand for carrying it around all day. But there's actually another thing that you can tie around your hand, so you can't actually drop it. It's not even possible to. So those are my picks because of my little adventure I just went on.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, support is always good, and it's weird with these camera straps and things because it's like how personal this stuff is. I think Julio was it you that introduced me to Peak Design? It might have been.
Yeah, Peak and Lance, before that, Lance camera straps.
Yeah, and since then I've been using them on all my cameras, and it's a system that you get sort of locked into. So I've got hand straps, I've got neck straps, thick ones, thin ones, whatever, for whatever occasion. And the old days of, okay, I picked this kind of hippie neck strap that I'm going to use all the time, those are gone. Now I can just clamp on whatever I want to whatever camera, whether it be the hand strap or whatever, and just roll with it. Julio, what about you? What do you have to recommend today?
I'm going to recommend Squarespace.
Oh, nice. Are you?
I really am. I often talk a lot about gear, and gear is fun. It's also kind of like low-hanging fruit. I love my tripod or whatever, and it's cool stuff, and it has its place. But as you know, Frederick, you and I were talking about doing podcasts and all this cool stuff, and like I had small camera, big picture, which was kind of blowing up in its own right, and then my photography business, and it was like earlier this year I was like overwhelmed. I was like, I'm so grateful for these opportunities. I have way too much coming at me. It was like overwhelming. So I just kind of I just said one day, I got to do something drastic, and I went and got on Squarespace. Within like 3 or 4 hours, I had a site going, and I'm used to I'm used to paying people to make the sites for me, to kind of go back to the previous conversation. But I made the site so fast, and it looks great. I already got an assignment from the site because it's so minimal. I got stills, cinemagraphs, and motion. I landed a really, really good assignment actually with a wireless carrier, and I can update the site on my phone. I can update it on my tablet. I can get analytics. I can blog with it, which I have. And so now it's like I'm always keeping my site fresh, my blog and all that, because it's so easy. So it kind of threw me back at first, because I think it's like $100 a year or something like that. It's like super cheap. So I was like, how good can it be? And it's phenomenal. So, you know.
Yeah, well,
100%.
You know what I have to throw in there, because Squarespace sponsored this episode. If people try Squarespace and use the code TWiP at checkout, they get 10% off. Look at that.
And they should. And I don't think I told you prior to this that I relaunched with Squarespace, but it really is it's a good service.
I didn't know. Yeah, I'm gonna go check it out. Is that at smallcamerabigpicture.com?
There is no more smallcamerabigpicture.com.
That's gone?
That's gone, dude. I ended that project. It's just Giulio Shorio now.
Oh, good on you, man. Good. Consolidating the brand.
I have to. I had too much going on, so it's it's all Squarespace now, and I'm loving it.
I checked out your site, and it's beautiful. I had looked at it earlier.
Thank you.
All right.
And I actually recommend.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, did we lose Lindsay?
Oh, there you are. She's just frozen a little bit.
Oh, I'm back.
Yep, there you are. There you go.
Okay.
Now, what were you saying? You said you recommended something?
Oh no, I checked out his site, and I was looking, and I'm like, I know that photo, and I know that photo, and I know that photo. I just didn't know who they belong to, so now I know.
Right on.
That's Giulio Shorio right there. Cool, man. Awesome. That's it. That's good. And yeah, I would encourage the TWiP listeners to head over to your site and give you some feedback, right? So
totally.
Feedback is always good. All right, cool. Well, my pick is the 5-day deal. Obviously, those are those folks that are, I think by the time that you listen to this episode, if you listen to it on launch week, which will be this Friday the 11th when this goes out, the deal will already be a day old. So you only have 4 days left to purchase this thing. So definitely check it out. Full transparency, the way that they fund the deal and the way that they structure all this is with affiliate arrangements with the folks that provide products in there. So when you buy something, we get a little piece of change from the overall fee that they charge you. So if you purchase through my TWiP link, then TWiP gets a little slice of change from every purchase, and that's at twip.pro/5-day deal. And Lindsay, I'm going to link to yours too, so people can bounce over to your site. And the way their cookies work, I think it's the last person that clicked on the link gets whatever. So we'll make it fair and balanced in this episode. That's how I like to do it.
Excellent.
Yeah. So mine is twip.pro/5-day deal, and we'll also link to Lindsay's stuff over there. You can go over there and see all the list of the who's who of photographers in there. Hopefully next year there'll be a Giulio Shorio in there, so you can participate in this too. now that he knows about it, I'm sure he'll be in it. So, all right, guys, we're at the end of the show. Before we sign off, I want to find out what's coming up for you in the coming months. Lindsay Adler, workshops, fun. What's happening for you?
Okay, so I was waiting because I was really excited.
Uh-oh.
I've got like cool workshops. I've got something in Vancouver, and I'm doing some the Promoting Passion Conference in North Carolina, which is put on by my best friend Brooke Shaden. So that's new for me.
I've interviewed her. That's your best friend?
That's my best friend.
That's you guys rock. See, we got to hang out. All three of us have to hang out in New York at PhotoPlanet.
Totally.
Okay, she will be here, so we should all make a big group party.
I know, Giulio, me, you, everybody. We're gonna hang out and talk photography and drink libations. Okay, continue.
Yeah, and I gotta talk about Giulio's work because now I know who it is from. Okay, so my exciting thing is when this airs. So this will be the first interview that I've said this. I am officially a Canon Explorer of Light.
All right.
So I just got my Canon sponsorship, which I had been waiting for since so I was really excited, and it starts kind of a new chapter of my career, and I'm just thrilled to be able to say that.
Congratulations. That is crazy. And Giulio, Lindsay, you're an Explorer of Light now officially, right? And Giulio, you're a Lumix luminary. So
yes, I'm exploring different light.
I have royalty on my show. I feel unworthy now.
Oh, jeez.
That is great. That is great. Congratulations. So that's brand new then, right? This just happened, Lindsay?
Well, at the time of this filming, it hasn't happened yet. But by the
Oh.
time it's announced, it has.
Oh, look at
So,
that.
Cool.
Look at that. Back to the Future. I love it. I love it.
exactly.
Well, congratulations, pre-congratulations to the future you that will
Thank
be
you.
an explorer of light at some point in the future, which by the time people listen to this will be the past. I don't know. Inception is going crazy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Cool. Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. Any other news you want to share?
I have a new educational website, which is basically just I have so much education out there, so I put it in one place, and
Mm-hmm.
it's learn.lindsayadlerphotography.com. So if you check it out, I don't know, I just put together, I got new stuff, I've got some of my old stuff, just a more friendly place to learn from me than a store, something a little more inviting. It's my little hub, my little home for education.
It's learn.lindsayadlerphotography.com,
Yep,
right? Okay, I'm
yep.
just putting the link in the show notes right now. Cool. And thank you for coming on the show again, especially on a holiday weekend. You showed up. This is unprecedented. I appreciate it. I know you probably be at a barbecue or someplace, having fun right now. Yet you're at home in front of your computer on the internet with us. So thank you.
I'm glad you think I'm that interesting. I was working all day.
We all know. We all know. You're going partying in New York after this. All right.
That's right.
All right, Julio Sorio, the other interesting person on the show. What's coming up for you in the future?
I'm working on a really cool project with a wireless carrier. Can't say the name just yet, but soon. They hired me based off of what I've been doing with cinemagraphs and my blog, my Squarespace site. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, it's cool. It's basically I am shooting whatever I want to shoot for them. Yeah, which is pretty cool. And it's a great project. It's a great project. So I don't have to deal with any creatives. I basically shoot it on the go as I travel, and I'm excited to get it out there. I really am.
That's cool.
And then I got a really, really cool personal project I'm working on. Speaking of self-tests, in Portland and in Bend, Oregon coming up, which is going to be mountain bikers and beer and a band. 3 separate shoots just because I want to do something different and awesome, so I'll be out there doing that. And then Adobe Max and Photo Plus and Shoot Anything tour with Joseph. So
Yeah,
a lot of good stuff, yeah.
That's really cool. You're busy. You're always busy. I love it. This is why we haven't talked in so long, because we're both busy, but you're a different kind of busy than I am. You're like rock star busy.
I think you're more busy than I am. I don't know, man.
I don't know. I'm like businessman busy. You're a rock star on tour busy, which is a different kind of cool busy. I like your busy better.
Thanks. It's pretty cool. Still exploring drones. Still playing with those too.
Oh yeah, we got to talk. We got to make some time to talk offline. All right, and what do I have coming up? So coming up November 29th through December 12th, I'm heading to Vietnam for 14 days and 13 nights. I'm going to help out Ralph Velasco on his photo enrichment tour. I think there's like 20 people going. There's like 1 or 2 slots left. So if you want to join us, please head over to the link that I'm putting in the show notes and check it out. It's I think he's got like 7 different cities that we're going to be popping into, and it's going to be insane. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to it. And for me, like we've been talking about on the show, it's kind of work, but it's more of a personal project. Like I don't have to go on this trip. I'm going because it's like I need to get away from the California world and put myself into a different location to supercharge or recharge my batteries. I feel like I'm on E, creatively. That I need to transplant myself, recharge, and then I'll come back a different person.
Right on.
So definitely go check that out. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. All right, guys, thanks to both of you for coming on. This is the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. I want to thank our sponsors for this episode. That's FreshBooks, Squarespace, and Lynda.com. Without them, the lights would not be on. And also be sure to check out our website over at thisweekinphoto.com. I'll link to Julio's site and Lindsay's site and all those things from there. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off.